Have you ever just looked at a kid and wondered, what is going on in there? You know? It's like their brain is running a completely different operating system. For the longest time, it was a total mystery. But then this psychologist, Jean Piaget, came along and basically handed us the map. A map for the incredible journey of a child's mind. All right, let's get into it.
So picture this. You pour the exact same amount of juice from a short, wide glass into a tall, skinny one. And a 5-year-old will swear on their life that the tall glass has more juice now. They're not just being difficult. This is a huge clue. It tells us their brain is wired in a fundamentally different way at that age. And Piaget? He was the guy who cracked the code.
You see, Piaget's big idea was totally revolutionary. He said the whole point of education should be to create people who can do new things, not just, copy what's already been done. He realized that kids aren't just mini, less informed adults. No, they are active builders. They're like little scientists, constantly running experiments and building their own understanding of how the world works.
So how in the world do they build this understanding? Well, it all starts with something you can imagine as a kind of filing cabinet inside their mind.
Piaget called these mental frameworks schemas. And a schema is just a file folder in your brain that holds everything you know about one thing. So you've got a schema for dog. It probably includes stuff like 4 legs, fur, barks, wags tail. You've got one for restaurant. Involves sitting down, looking at a menu, ordering food. It's how our brains organize information so we don't get totally overwhelmed.
Okay, but what happens when something new comes along? Something that doesn't quite fit the files we already have? Do we just kind of cram it into an old folder, or do we have to make a new one? This is where the real magic of learning happens. It comes down to 2 key processes.
Let's talk about the 2 sides of the learning coin, assimilation and accommodation. These 2 concepts are basically the engines that are constantly updating that mental filing cabinet of ours. First, you've got assimilation. This is the easy one. It's when new information fits pretty neatly into a folder you already have. So imagine a toddler, right? Their doggy folder just says 4 legs and furry. They see a cat for the first time, 4 legs, furry, and they yell, doggy! They're just assimilating this new thing into their existing file. No big deal.
But then, someone corrects them. No, sweetie, that's a kitty. It says meow. Now hold on. Meow does not fit in the doggy folder. So the brain has to do something called accommodation. It has to change its structure. The kid either updates the doggy file or, more likely, creates a brand new folder labeled kitty. So accommodation, that's the hard work. That's changing your mind.
And this constant dance between fitting things in and changing our minds, Piaget called that equilibration. You know that feeling when something just doesn't add up? That little bit of mental confusion or tension? That's called disequilibrium. And it's that discomfort, that mental itch, that actually pushes us to learn. It's the very engine that drives our understanding forward.
And this engine, this process of equilibration, drives us through a series of what you can think of as major mental upgrades. Piaget laid out 4 distinct stages that pretty much every kid journeys through as their thinking evolves.
So here it is, the roadmap. We start at birth with the sensorimotor stage. Then we move into the pre-operational and concrete operational stages, and we top out in our teens with the formal operational stage. And here's the key thing to remember. Each stage isn't just about knowing more stuff. It's about unlocking a fundamentally new way of seeing and thinking about the world. Let's take a quick walk through them.
First up, from birth to about 2, we're in the sensorimotor stage. At this point, babies are just pure physical explorers. They learn about the world by touching it, grabbing it, tasting it. You get the idea. The massive achievement in this stage is figuring out object permanence. That's the game-changing realization that when mom hides a toy behind her back, the toy doesn't just poof, vanish from existence.
Next, from around 2 to 7, kids enter the pre-operational stage, and boom, language and imagination just explode. Suddenly, a stick isn't just a stick, it's a magic wand. A cardboard box is a rocket ship. But their thinking is still very intuitive, not logical. They're pretty egocentric, meaning they really struggle to see things from someone else's point of view. And yep, this is the stage of our juice glass problem. They just can't grasp the logic of conservation yet.
Then, around age 7, it's like a switch flips. Welcome to the concrete operational stage. Logical thought finally comes online, but, and this is a big but, it's tied to real, physical, concrete things they can see and touch. Now they can totally understand that the amount of juice in the glass is the same. They get conservation.
And they also master things like reversibility, the idea that if 3 plus 4 is 7, then 7 minus 4 has to be 3.
And finally, from about age 11 on up, we hit the formal operational stage. This is where our thinking truly breaks free from the physical world. Abstract thought becomes possible. We can start to reason about hypothetical problems, the what-ifs. We can think more systematically, like a scientist. It's basically the final major upgrade to our mental operating system.
Okay, so this is all really fascinating theory, but what's really cool is how practical it is. You can take these ideas and apply them directly, whether you're a teacher in a classroom or a parent at home.
Just take a look here. You can literally match the activity to the developmental stage. For a baby in that sensory motor stage, a simple game of peekaboo is actually a powerful lesson in object permanence. For a pre-operational kid, you want to encourage lots of pretend play. That's how they build symbolic thinking. Once they hit the concrete operational stage, things like sorting beads or classifying leaves help strengthen those new logical muscles. And for a teen in the formal operational stage, get them debating big hypothetical issues. That's what stretches their abstract thinking.
So after all these years, what's the verdict on Piaget? I mean, his theory isn't perfect, nobody's is, but its core ideas have completely changed how we think about kids and how they learn. Now, to be fair, modern science has pointed out some issues. Some studies show Piaget might have underestimated what kids can do, that they can grasp some concepts earlier than he thought. Others point out, pretty rightly, that he didn't pay a whole lot of attention to how culture and social interaction shape a kid's development. And we also know now that these stages are probably a lot more fluid and overlapping than he originally described.
But even with all that, Piaget's core contributions are huge. The idea that children are active learners who build their own knowledge, that is the absolute foundation of modern education. And his work proves something monumental. Kids don't just know less than adults, they actually think in fundamentally different ways.
This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? Real, deep learning isn't about just passively soaking up facts like a sponge. It's an active process. It can be messy. It's about wrestling with new ideas, rearranging those mental files, and building a better, more complex way of seeing the world.
And that kind of brings us full circle, back to ourselves. Because this whole process, assimilation, accommodation, it doesn't just stop when we turn 18. We're doing it our whole lives. So it's worth asking, what's one outdated file in your own mental filing cabinet? You know, a belief you've held for a long time that might be due for a major accommodation. Something to think about.